evening, Crime Talk aficionados. My name is Scott Reich. This is Crime Talk. As you can tell, we are not in the Crime Talk studios this evening. Well, because I'm on the road. So we try to be consistent. We try to get a video out every day. We try to do our live every Tuesday, do our Patreon immediately following this show. And we try to do it even if we're on the road because, well, we appreciate you, and hopefully you appreciate us coming to you as well. So let me tell you a little bit about my adventure here on the road. So originally, I just had a court appearance on the Western Slope tomorrow, or it's going to be tomorrow. But then I have a client at another county over here in the Western Slope that needs to make decisions. Okay, and I'm not going to get into specifics of his case. Don't want to do anything like that. But one of the worst parts about being a criminal defense attorney is sometimes you got to tell the client, I understand what you would like to see happen. If it was up to me, I would let that happen. But unfortunately, it doesn't always work out that way. And you have to go to the client with the bad news and say, listen, I get that the offer sucks, but I think you're going to lose if you go to trial. And if you go to trial, guess what? You're going to get more time than the crappy offer that the district attorney is extending to you. It's not a fun time. It's not fun because obviously, I don't make promises I can't keep. I mean, I got that in my fee agreement. I tell clients first time I meet them, I will not make you a promise that I can't keep. Okay? I can't do it. There's too many variables, too many unknowns. Other than I will promise that I will do my best for them throughout the process. And so you always think, sometimes you have great successes on cases that were just garbage and they turn into great. And then there's some that just don't have any good facts. You kind of feel like, contestant there on the Wheel of Fortune. Yes, Vanna, I'd like to buy a vowel, please. I'd like to buy a good fact, and there's just none to be had. So that's always, interesting. And of course, clients are in custody. That's even more fun because you have to coordinate it all the time. And some people really like going to the jail. But unfortunately for me, I don't mind going to the jail. I just wish there'd be some uniformity through them, right? Like some places they're like, do you want me to check my phone somewhere? Oh, no, you're good. You're going to take it back with you. Today, I could take my laptop into the custody to see my client, but I couldn't take my jacket with me. That was just a little too far. Trust you with the laptop where you can get Wi-Fi, but don't be wearing that jacket back there. It just makes no sense. So of course you got to go tell the client. I've informed you. I kept you informed on everything that's going on. Negotiations, you give me authority to settle for this amount. I can't do what you want me to do. The DA won't budge. I've pulled out, done everything, I will even grovel for clients if that's what it means to go to the district attorney and grovel to get the client what they want. And sometimes they just don't care. So that was not a fun talk today. Then I get to move on down the road, and I'm going to have a very similar conversation again tomorrow, which is kind of frustrating because it's one of those things where there's just not any good. Some cases weren't meant to go to trial. Some cases just aren't meant to go to trial. And then on another note, I got another case down here that, we recently got retained on, very serious case. So we're going to try to check that out as well. But, you just try to fit it all in, and the only thing you can do is just be absolutely honest with the clients. You can't lie to clients. You can't get their hopes up. You just have to tell them the good, the bad, and the ugly of their case. And that's kind of what I do when we have these little conversations, whether it's in our daily show or a Patreon show or our live show on a Tuesday night. We like to look at the facts, call it the way we see it. I can argue any side of it, whether it's prosecution side, defense side, we can come up with something. But the reality of it is the facts are the facts, the law is the law. And at some point, everybody has to look at it and say, you know what? Sometimes they got to cut a deal. Sometimes there's no deal to be had. It'll simply be what they refer to as GORT, guilty or trial. Sometimes they used to have a stamp for that in the jurisdiction where I used to do a lot of work in there, and it was just GORT. Plead guilty to the charge, guilty or trial. Those are easy. Let's go. I can get that by going to trial and losing. Let's do it. But when they're offering you a better deal, it's always where it gets a little tougher. So anyway, let's move on from there. So as I say, we're on the road in this glorious hotel room. I can just tell you, who would have thought on the western slope of Colorado, you actually have difficulty getting a room out here? Because in the summer, I get it. There's all kinds of tourism and things going on. But as fall is coming and winter's here, you got skiing just a heartbeat away over in Telluride. And there's just always something going on. Apparently these bus tours with all these old retirees coming through here, and they pack up all the hotels. So anyway, you didn't probably come here to listen to me talk about my travel arrangements. You came here to discuss true crime. So let's do that. All right. You know the drill. Leave me a comment. Sometimes I get a little carried away. Don't get to hit all the comments. But since I'm on the road this evening, hopefully this situational setup here will allow me to see the comments. All right. And so if you got a question, now's the time to ask me. But what do we want to talk about tonight? Well, first of all, we got the Delphi situation. And as we brought you the news today, Mr. Allen, the man accused of the homicides there in Delphi as it relates to the two young girls, he's got an attorney, not one, but two, okay? Now, first of all, I told you I like this judge, the Honorable Judge Gull. She got designated by the Supreme Court when the previous judge recused himself for a variety of reasons. It doesn't matter. I still think you're a judge. Unless you know somebody that's an absolute direct relative to him, small town, you're always going to know somebody's business. But if you don't think you'd be fair and impartial, that's fine. But if you thought because it was going to be too high profile of a case and, people are going to make threats, you got to get over it. You're a judge, okay? I've received threats. I've received threats from family members over the years. I've received threats from people leaving messages at my office, telling me, how could you represent that person? Terrible bad things should happen to you as well. Okay. Anyway, Judge Gull, she has appointed, all right, she knows it's a serious case, and Mr. Hall requested the public defender. He previously thought he was going to retain private counsel, but you're talking about being accused of a double homicide. Heck, we know already just from the Murdaugh matter down there in South Carolina, his attorney's got a $600,000 retainer from his 401k to pay for that case with two very expensive attorneys, but very good attorneys. All right. And then here we have the court appointing Andrew Baldwin is kind of the lead guy. He's been practicing law about a year before I have. And then we have Bradley Rozzi. I think I'm pronouncing that name correctly. He's been practicing law over 20 years. He's death penalty qualified, as I believe Mr. Baldwin is as well. So they've done the work before. They've done the guns and knives, and they've done the big cases and what have you. And the judge, who I like, Judge Gull, I have no reason to not trust her, She's obviously seen the affidavit because she's the court. And she's saying, we're going to have the hearing on the 22nd, just like was previously set. And now I'm going to appoint this gentleman 2 private attorneys. Now, I'm not going to say if I know how exactly it works in Indiana, if they have a state public defender system, or, I mean, that's the way we have it here in Colorado. We have a public defender system. Each county has a public defender's office, and they got a complete staff. It's probably one of the best public defender systems in the country, maybe only second to the federal public defender's office, in my opinion. Then if there's a conflict with the public defender's office here, for example, then they appoint private counsel to represent somebody. Now, some states, they just have, smaller counties, they're not going to have a public defender's office out there. There's just not that much work, so to speak. So they'll have private attorneys and they'll say, all right, you appear before this court quite a bit. I'm going to appoint you this case. Will you accept it? It's probably at a reduced or a substantially reduced fee than what these people would normally be getting as an hourly rate. But they do it because they believe in the Constitution to make sure that everybody has counsel, regardless of how heinous the alleged crime will be. They represent the despised and the damned, right? So it's, I read the bios for each of these guys. Mr. Baldwin sounds like a true criminal defense attorney through and through. Mr. Razi as well seems very well accomplished and no slouch. But the court more than likely hand-selected these two to say, I'm going to make sure this guy gets competent counsel. And it looks like the judge did a good job. Now, both of these two could have said, hey, judge, I'm just not up for it. It's too much work. My family could receive threats. No, they took it. They took it because they know that everybody's entitled to a defense, and that's their job. Unlike potentially some judges who got a little scared. These guys, they're saying, put me in, coach. Give me the ball. I want to be there for the big game. Not, oh, it's too scary. I don't know. I could choke under the lights. I'm not going to have, oh my gosh. No, these guys do it. So good for them. And you can say, Scott, if this guy did it, why do we want him to have a good attorney? Because one, if he didn't do it, we don't want anybody going to prison for something they didn't do. And second of all, if he did do it, if they have effective and competent counsel and the prosecution proves their case beyond a reasonable doubt to each and every element of the offense charged, then the conviction is going to stick. And frankly, if they're guilty, you want to make sure they get all the due process, all their rights are protected, everything, all their rights under the 4th, 5th, 6th, make sure it's all taken care of. So if it goes up on appeal, they say, although it was there, it was harmless in light of the overwhelming evidence. Basically saying there's nothing anybody could have done with that particular case. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens here and how things go. Like I said, this Judge Gull, I think we got a winner here. I hope I'm not wrong, but I think she's done well. And her first choice here of appointing some very experienced and competent counsel for the alleged Delphi alleged murderer, Richard Allen. Do good. The judge is doing a very, very good job. All right. So that we're going to, like I said, somehow I think, and maybe I'm going to be wrong, but I hope not. But I do believe that this Delphi matter, there's going to be a huge difference between the way this case is going to be handled by the court, the counsel, and say, for example, the Lori Vallow, Chad Daybell matter. So I still look back at the Lori Vallow, Chad Daybell matter, and I just do not get anything that's taking place in that case. I mean, we got a judge that basically puts in like a secret gag order. It's so secret, he won't even publish the order. It's so secret. And we put up the motions hearing the other day, and John Pryor, talked about, this gag order. Doesn't want to violate the court's order, et cetera, et cetera. And it's just like, it's in court. You can talk about things in court. I mean, to say you can't discuss any facts of the case unless it is in chambers. I mean, what sort of third world is Idaho living in that regard? And no disrespect, but I just don't understand it. Now, I don't know what this Judge Gull will do in the Delphi matter when Mr. Allen appears in court. Hopefully something's been filed by the defense attorneys. Now they just were appointed on the case. Give them some time. They got to get up to speed. A motion to unseal the affidavit. Now they may say, we don't want anybody to know. But you never know. You never know what these attorneys do. I don't know anything about them. I think we're going to learn a lot about these attorneys. From what it looks like, they are skilled attorneys, which is good because I love watching good lawyer. I love watching great lawyering. There's nothing more exciting than great lawyering because you can get those aha moments, so to speak, or those Perry Mason moments in court where the whole, mic drop kind of thing, and the whole courtroom is just stunned by just what took place. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just getting a little too excited about this, but I love watching good lawyering. I love watching good judges, and we'll see if the prosecution is going to be able to prove their case. If he did it, then I hope they can prove their case. If obviously he's innocent, we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to see what evidence is linking Mr. Allen to the alleged Delphi murders. And if there's nothing there, it's weak. I mean, I don't know. Depending on how he's charged, he should be entitled to a preliminary hearing. Let's have a hearing. Let's do it sooner rather than later. And I'm not going to tell these attorneys how to do their job. I know they have a trial date. It's an artificial trial date that's set. The police have had 6 years to investigate this case. They've made some rumblings that some people were prime suspects, and then it turned out they're not. It's happened twice, at least 2 times. So is Mr. Allen just, wrongfully accused, or is he guilty as sin? Okay, and well, that used to be my old advertising slogan years ago. Wrongfully accused or guilty as sin. Either way, you need an experienced criminal defense attorney. I got some great response on those ads because I've had people call up and say, I'm guilty as sin, but I need an attorney. I'm wrongfully accused. I need an attorney. Okay, that's great. And everybody in between, right? So if Mr. Allen is wrongfully accused or guilty of sin, it's going to come out. And the police and the prosecutor trying to keep the affidavit from being released because their ongoing investigation, which I think is always interesting because remember, there's no statute of limitations on murder, at least, first degree murder after deliberation, just about every jurisdiction that I'm aware of. They've had 6 years, so basically no rush to do it right. They apparently get some sort of tip right before he was arrested, right about Halloween. 2 weeks before that, they searched his house based upon some information that somehow fell into the police investigator's lap. It didn't appear as though they were working on it themselves. So, if the prosecution has a great case, you think they'd want to be out there saying, we've had a great case, and we're going to tell you what it is. We're not going to do anything unethical, but we're going to show you the evidence that we have so that we're doing our job and we got the right guy this time. Not like we didn't arrest anybody before. That's okay. We didn't arrest anybody. but we kind of point some fingers at some people. And, that's serious stuff. When you start pointing fingers at people and then you say, oh, never mind. You're a prime suspect until you're not. Yeah. Got a super chat here. I'll try to do this. Scott, do you know the business? I'm not sure what that means. Business. I don't know. I'm not sure on civil law. Let me know. Let's see if I can scroll down here. Some of these, sometimes this little computer, depends on what we use. Sometimes it go by super fast. Sometimes it's super slow. I don't know. So I'm not sure what that means on civil law. Do you know the business? I'm not sure. Let's see here. So basically, what it comes down to, I think it's going to be good. I think it's going to be a really interesting case. I don't know. I don't even know exactly who's going to be the prosecutor in this case. I know the elected DA made some comments early on when Mr. Allen was arrested, but he hasn't really made any since that time. So once again, we're going to have to wait and see how that turns out, who the prosecutors are going to be. Now, what I did like, I was doing some research on Mr. Baldwin today. And I like his style because it's very similar to what we do in our practice. Most criminal defense practices are one-person firm. That's all they do. One person, they take a couple of cases, and they get done with those, and they get a couple more. Solo practice type of situation. And for example, our firm, we have 5 attorneys. That's a big criminal defense firm. You don't see a lot of firms that usually have more than a couple of people. And so Mr. Baldwin, when I was reading about him, has a very similar philosophy, was that, we're going to hire people. We're going to have a firm that all these people are going to work on the case, and it's going to be the team. They refer to it as the team. And he said in one of his comments that people would make fun of him when he showed up to court. The DAs would say, oh, which member of the team is coming to court today? Kind of mocking him. But when push came to shove, the whole team was coming there for the defense of their client. And that's the way I like to do things in my office. I always think, anything over probably a class 3 felony where I am, or go to federal court, always take an associate, sometimes a paralegal as well. Heck, we did a big trial a couple years ago. We had Frank down there, and he was a godsend because we had all these videotapes of all these body cams, and this one person throughout saying, it just went off, it just went off, it just went off, it just went off. And so as the trial went through, and I had thought about it, but as it really started developing at trial, it was like, hey, Frank, can you do this? I know you're in court with me all day, but can you go do this in the evening, take all this stuff and slice it up and do it? And it came out great. We got up in closing statement, and boom, hit the little button on the PowerPoint. It just went off. It just went off. It just went off. It just went off. Saying the firearm just went off. And arguing before anybody knew what was going on. That's what he was saying. Before he talked to lawyers, before he talked to engineers. That's what he's saying. It just went off. But it was a team effort. We had multiple attorneys working on that case. We had, researchers. Even at night, we were calling back to the office, or in the middle of the day if an issue came up, researching that. And if you're a one-man guy, solo operation, I'm telling you, I've been there. It just doesn't work on the big cases. And when you have big cases, you need a team. You need a team. So I like Mr. Baldwin's philosophy about doing cases. that it's a team effort, and I totally believe that. Whether it's the paralegal, the receptionist, the attorneys, the associate, the guy that's getting up to try the case, or the guy that's there just to do the research, it's just as important. It's kind of like, when everybody, you get on that commercial flight, and you got the flight, you got the flight attendants, you got the ladies, taking your ticket to the door, you got the people loading the bags in the plane, the guy pulling the chocks, and the pilot, he kind of gets the glory because he's the pilot, right? But none of that would work if the whole team didn't do it. So I like Mr. Baldwin's philosophy on that. Very similar to mine. It takes a team. Big cases require a team. You can't do it because when you're in trial, you show up for court at 8:30 when you're supposed to start. Well, you've probably been up at 6 o'clock just going over everything again, that you were probably up late the night before going through again and preparing and changing your cross-examination and how you want to handle something. When you're doing that, you don't have time to be saying, when the judge says, I want those jury instructions modified. You need somebody else to go do that. You need the team so that somebody can focus on what they need to do. So you have to break that up. All just as important. So I like that philosophy. So like I said, Mr. Allen, I don't know if he did it or not. Frankly, none of us do. We know they raised enough evidence for probable cause to be found by a court. But remember, that is a super, super, super low standard of proof. Very low. And it's not proof beyond a reasonable doubt, right? If you're this is the ground, you start off here, probable cause is right about there. Would a reasonable person believe that a crime was committed and that the defendant may have had something to do with it? Very, very low standard of proof. Proof beyond a reasonable doubt at trial is not a vague, imaginary, or a speculative doubt, but a doubt that would cause people to pause in matters of great importance. Doesn't mean beyond a shadow of a doubt. Doesn't mean beyond any doubt. It's a reasonable doubt. A reasonable doubt. Something. Would you're hesitating. Should I do it? Should I buy the house? It's got that big crack in the basement floor. Is it going to be okay? I don't know. That kind of thing. The prosecution's case, you pulled the carpet back and you found that big old crack. Do you trust it? Is it, it's not a big deal. It's hardly anything. Or it says, yeah, I'm going to raise reasonable doubt. Maybe that's just not the case. I'm not buying into that. And so we'll see what they have. Now, obviously, if they have some DNA, that'd be interesting. We don't know. If there was some souvenir that was allegedly found, we'll have to wait and see. I don't know. That's what the affidavit that was released early on, kind of released by mistake during a FOIA request, as related to Mr. Klein, the person who was communicating with her, the catfish guy. And, that's the FBI's theory at the time, that somebody had taken a souvenir. So who knows? Did the wife turn him in? What fell into the investigators' lap? Because didn't seem like they were on a hot trail at all. So we'll have to wait and see. It's going to be good. Let's see if we can take a couple of comments here. See if I can take it. Let's see if we can come up with some questions here. Let's see. Julie R's. My opinion, that they need a change of venue. That may take place. According to Indiana law, whether it's the prosecution or the defense, a change of venue needs to be made within 30 days of the arraignment or saying not guilty. Obviously, Mr. Allen probably didn't know that, wasn't going to know what the heck to do with that. But normally, Normally, an issue like venue can be raised at any time for good cause. And the judge may do it herself, but it's going to stay in that county as of right now. Scott hasn't seen the Daryl Brooks music videos. I have not. They can't release the. This is Jenny. Let's see here. They can't release the bodies because sadly the court needs them as objects with evidence right now instead of the live people that they were. Jenny, I'll be honest with you. I don't know. I didn't know that the bodies had not been returned to the family for a burial. We'll see. I didn't know that if it has. I would think that normally in a homicide investigation, if it's a homicide, the autopsy is done. The coroner, takes their samples, their scrapings, everything that goes on in a autopsy. They document it via photographs and all their samples and what have you, and things of evidentiary value are saved. And then normally the remains are turned over to the family. We do know in the Lori Vallow Chad Daybell matter that the remains have not been turned over to the family for a proper burial. And the reason for that is that obviously the cause and manner of death is going to be, or purports to be, some sort of an issue. So the prosecution says, hey, we need to hold off releasing these bodies. They may need to be tested, et cetera, et cetera. It's not a pleasant thing. And I think I mentioned this before. I had this case kind of in a very similar area where I am right now a couple of years ago. It was a case involving a couple of deceased children. And the issue really was not only who did it, but what did the children pass away from? But since they were where they were found, how they were found, basically, it was kind of a weird situation where, given the environment that they were in, it was kind of they were mummified. Literally, they were like mummified. And so nobody could say, it's not like you could say, oh, there was a wound here that would be indicative of a bullet hitting and breaking a bone, or a stab wound that you could see on a bone and say, yes, they were stabbed. Everything was gone. Like, it was all mummified, and the pictures where they were found, all these bugs, and you had to go to the body farm people and say, how do we know how this took place? And they were like, well, you would see these kinds of bugs at this point in the decomposition process, and real interesting stuff. But those children, it wasn't until all the trials were done that they were finally released. And we had to basically say, okay, we think we're done. Because in that particular case, we had to literally get permission from the court to take this box of bones and ship it to our expert witness across the country so that he could examine the remains in his own laboratory to determine if he could find what nobody else could find, which was what was the cause and manner of death. And his was very similar. But it was it's almost like you forget about it when you're in the heat of the moment of the trial and the case. You're like, well, we got to figure it out. We're going to do it. And I was like, oh yeah, by the way, there's a father over there who would like to bury his child. And he's kind of raising his hand saying, could I get the bones of my child? They're literally in a box so that we can have a proper burial for them. And of course you feel a little, yeah, sorry, you can take those, right? So it doesn't happen often, but it's the type of situation where it does come up. It makes you feel bad. Let's see here. What is your opinion on the Patrick Frazee appeal? I know, Dana, that Patrick Frazee has been doing the appeal. I think they had oral arguments 4 or 5 months ago. I haven't seen an opinion come out, but if you know something I don't know, please let me know. I try to look at the slip opinions that come out from the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court every week, but I don't recall reading one on him. So, let's see here. I'm trying to look at some of the comments here. Annette, at first I thought Richard Allen might be innocent, but seeing that picture of his daughter on that very bridge, he seems to be somewhere else. It seems like he can't stand his wife. I don't know anything about that. His wife has apparently gone into hiding, has referenced his wife that she had to leave for his security, that they didn't have any financial ability, to pay for an attorney. I haven't heard anything about it. I don't know. I mean, they were married, they were living together. I'm just not sure. Scott, this is a Lori Vallow, Chad Day Bell question. Scott, do you think instead of severing Chad and Lori's trial, they could have two juries decide their fate? And is that a normal process for a death penalty case? Multiple juries is not a normal process any time. Has it been done? Yes. Will it be done in the future? Yes. Why? Okay. Most courtrooms are not large enough to accommodate 12 jurors for each defendant plus alternates. So you got 24 jurors plus alternates. You still have the same issues if you were going to try and do a case with multiple juries. You're going to present the evidence. Everyone's going to hear the evidence. Then the jury's going to read a limiting instruction. They're going to say, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to hear evidence of 404B evidence. You may consider this for what it's worth, but you can only consider it for this limited purpose, to show absence of mistake, motive, modus operandi, something along those lines. Because remember, normally 404B evidence is prohibited unless there's a specific exception under the rules. And so the jury that's set there for, let's say, Chad Day Bell, and then the other one for Lori Vallow, and they're there, and the judge is going to say, all right, Lori Vallow, Chad Day Bell jurors, you can consider this evidence. But Lori Vallow jurors, you cannot consider this evidence. Why? If it's inadmissible, I understand it's a conspiracy, but if it's so inadmissible that otherwise would warrant a severance, why are you going to try and get cute with with impaneling two juries? It doesn't make any sense. You're getting cute. And it just drives me bonkers. Every time the prosecution files something in regards to severance, and even the judge, well, this is going to be really inconvenient because we're already moving this case up to Ada County. And did I tell you how inconvenient this is going to be to the court staff? Excuse me, not only in Madison County, but all the way up there in Ada County. And we're basically guests up there, and we need to be good guests, and this is going to be inconvenient. Well, guess what? There's a little thing you got to deal with, and it's called reality. And the reality of it is, Lori Vallow, she's probably not going to be joining us again for a trial. The sooner, and maybe I'm wrong, all right, but I'm thinking. This case has been going on for 3 years from the beginning when the children disappeared. The indictment came out almost 2 years ago. Lori Vallow has spent the better part of the indictment portion, the homicide case, at the state mental hospital being restored to competency. It doesn't take a lot to be restored to competency. Okay? if you know who your prosecutor is, what his role is, what the judge's role is, what the role of your defense attorneys are, and what are the bad things that can happen to you. Oh, and by the way, you can fog a mirror so you have a pulse. You're competent. I've seen people that were crazy, but they're competent. Because the state mental health people, God bless them, they got a lot of work to do. They have limited resources, limited space, and it just keeps coming. Because we've mentioned this before, if you look at the number of people in the criminal justice system, many of them have mental health issues. So it would seem pretty reasonable that you're going to have a lot of people that competency comes up when the attorneys go talk with them and they're like, yeah, this isn't right. This person here, this Lori Vallow lady, she thinks that she's some sort of goddess. And she's one of the chosen 1,400 or whatever the number was that they were going to be spared because the end of the world is coming because she's the goddess of whatever. The attorney's going to say, yeah, I got to file a motion for competency. As soon as she gets back after 10 months at the state hospital, there's a hearing. And what's one of the first things that Mr. Archibald says during that hearing? My client's mental health, her competency is very fragile, and he views it as a day-by-day situation. At some point, obviously, he filed the motion and said, Judge, she's not well. She can't assist in her defense. And the professionals, the mental health people down there that deal with this, that weed out the malingerers, weed out the people that are just not crazy. You know, the people that say, well, when do I get my competency evaluation? Well, never, because you haven't told me that there's any reason why I would need to comp you. But some people play these silly little games. I know. Scott, are you saying sometimes people in the criminal justice system are manipulative? Yes, they can be. Do they try to play this game that they think if they can stall, delay? Yes, some people think they do. It usually backfires because all the professionals working in the arena, the prosecutor, defense attorney, judges, they've seen it all before. And so I said it way back when. Lori Vallow was down there for 10 months. They were trying to restore her. And I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a psychiatrist. All I know is I've had very similar circumstances where clients have gone down to the state hospital and they don't come back for a really, really long time. That means they're broken up here. And the only way they're going to fix what's broken up here sometimes is lots of drugs. Okay. So before we start getting the hate stuff, and I've seen this before, and the name of the drug that comes up that I've seen that they're like, we don't know what else to do. And they give them this thing called Halidol. That's what I've seen. I don't know if there's something else. Maybe they change it. I don't know. But I have seen people on that literally are just a mere figment of what they would just kind of sit there and go along and get along with anything. And the theory is, well, we can't really fix it, but we can't really keep them forever. We don't want to keep them forever. Let's get them fixed up. Had a guy, that's what they did. It wasn't my case before that, but they get him go along with anything, plead him guilty, get him on his way, send him off to his next matter. And I would be very, very surprised if Lori Vallow at some point returns to us. And I think the courts and the prosecutors in the Lori Vallow Chad DeBell matter should start dealing with reality. Okay? Just like I told you at the beginning of the show, I have to go talk to clients and give them reality. The reality of it is Lori Vallow spent most of her time in custody, probably about half of it, at the state hospital being restored. So let's get realistic. They're probably going to have to move the Chad Daybell matter along eventually. Yes, he's waived his right to speedy trial. As we understand it, once you do that, it keeps kind of going, and they don't have to really set a date. A little different from where I am. It's kind of weird that it can be endless, and I understand if there's a co-defendant, but we're not talking like in the federal system where the speedy trial doesn't start until the last guy's apprehended. I mean, you have a statutory speedy trial right? That 6-month period. But then you have a constitutional speedy trial right, where, they can't hold you indefinitely. That Sixth Amendment thing, right to a speedy and public trial. Usually it's about a year where there's not a whole lot going on that it starts raising the constitutional issues. And so they're going to have to move his case along. So just start dealing with reality and stop dealing with the money. You're the government, for God's sakes. There's always money for justice. Go try the damn thing. Quit trying to act like you're, pinching pennies. You'll find it. It's in some other fund, rainy day fund. Take it, use it for justice. Get it done. And I'm telling you, when a prosecutor won't turn everything over, they're not that good of an attorney, because a great attorney's going to say, I'm going to give you everything you want, and I'm still going to convict your client. And when prosecutors don't want to go try their case, they got problems with it. Usually prosecutors, they should be chomping at the bit to go try this case. They're the state. They're supposed to win. They have all this great evidence. They have all the good facts, and they should be chomping at the bit. Oh, Chad Daybell wants his trial in October? Done. We'll see him there. That's when they're competent prosecutors. They're ready to go try their case, and that the defense asked for. My humble opinion, take it for what it's worth. It should be worrying a lot of people. And the longer this case drags out in the Lori Vallow Chad Daybell matter, the potential for more opportunities for something to go wrong for the prosecution increases. All those witnesses, it's like herding cats, trying to keep up with them. It as more time goes on, people die, witnesses' memories fade. You got to move on. And so they just need to deal with reality and say, let's go try this thing. My 2 cents worth. I think that's all I got to say about that one. All right. Daryl Brooks was the bridge guy's attorney. Grounds. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Don't remember to subscribe and like. If you haven't done so already, hit that little bell so you get notifications. And yes, all our mods. Thanks. You can become a member. You can also become a Patreon, which we'll do after this show. Normally we would have a call-in, but I'm on the road. I can't do it. Frank has all the fancy stuff back there at the office. Let's see here. Mev says, right. Apparently Alan came forward years ago and said that he was at the bridge that day. And for some reason, that was brushed off. I did not know that, Mev. I don't know where you got that information, but I have no reason to doubt it. It's interesting. Clumsy Clairvoyance, $2 super chat. Do you think the probable cause will be released? Yes. I think it will eventually. Hopefully on the 22nd. If not, we're going to have a preliminary hearing. Those facts are going to come out anyway. So release it to the people. The public has just as much right to know. Now, obviously, we're not going to get a copy of all of the evidence in the case. Precautions can be taken. Yes, they can. We saw that in the Barry Morphew case, remember? His 132-page affidavit for the arrest. And the judge was like, I'm going to have to redact most of this because it's 99% of it was completely irrelevant. It was investigators' opinions thrown in. It was multiple levels of hearsay within hearsay that's not even, can't be considered at that point because it's so unreliable. And that was one of the reasons for the delay, for the redaction of it. So, come on. The public, if a crime's being committed, we have a right to know who did it, what evidence do they have against them, give the guy a fair trial, don't prejudice his trial at all, but that can be done. And I'm telling you, that trial's not going to go in the same county where the homicides took place. It's going to be moved to a different locale, no doubt in my mind. And I know you may find this hard to believe, but there are some people out there that don't follow crime news, true crime information. There's some people out there that don't even watch the news, and they can bring in enough jurors. They will be able to find 12, probably maybe 3 or 4 alternates. They can hang out for a couple of weeks, and there'll be a fair trial. I think it's somewhat, arrogant, maybe presumptuous, that these judges and DAs think that the whole world watches this particular case and that, they'll never be able to find 12 jurors that will be able to do it. I used to have a law professor that used to say, 12 jurors, 12 people good and true, otherwise unemployable or not smart enough to get out of jury duty. I don't believe that, because I think jury duty is the greatest exercise of a citizen's right that most people get to do, other than maybe voting. We hear about all this stuff. This is constitutional. That's constitutional. It's not. Oh, it was searched illegal. Unless you work on it every day, it's not really there. It's not really there. But jury duty and voting is where people's constitutional rights, where the rubber hits the road. And I think jurors take their jobs very, very seriously. They want to do it right. For many people, it's the greatest decision that they've ever had to make in their life. In some cases, it's a life or death situation, and jurors want to do the right thing. So, and you're going to be able to find 12 people that can hear the case. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. Think of all the high-profile cases. They always seem to be able to find a jury. And just because you're aware of it doesn't necessarily disqualify you from being a jury of a high-profile case. It just simply means you have to be honest and say, well, have I formed an opinion about it where I couldn't give both sides a fair shake at trial? And if that's the case, the person shouldn't be on the jury because they've already formed an opinion as to one's guilt or innocence. And if it's not a presumption of innocence, then they shouldn't be on that jury. So we'll see. I think people just get so spun up about that stuff. It's going to go, it'll be okay. How does losing commissary privilege affects Darrell Brooks? In most jurisdictions that I'm aware of, if a prisoner in their Department of Corrections or whatever they call it in their particular location, if that defendant has restitution that's owed, or court costs and fees, etc., any money that goes on their books, whether through working in the prison system or somebody says, here's your $100 a month that I'm going to send you, usually a percentage of that goes to the restitution. I'm not exactly sure what percentage, if it's all of it, of Mr. Brooks' commissary money will be taken from him. If it's all of it until it's all paid off, which he'll never be able to do, or was it, a percentage of it? I don't know. But it's money out of his pocket. I can't imagine he's going to have a bunch of people donating money to him and saying, oh, you poor man, how did you do this? He's not going to have a fan club, I think. I hope not. For God's sakes, I hope not. Do you know what a lawful law is? Because I still don't have a clue. Subject matter jurisdiction. Is that a jurisdictional determination grounds? Love you, Scott. All right. Uncivil law. Thanks for the super chat. Jurisdiction, subject matter jurisdiction. And oh my gosh, we're talking international shoe. Where does the madness end? Good question. Love you. We need to have you back on the show. Frank, can you make a note of that? Let's reach out to Uncivil Law. Let's get him back on the show. Okay? Clearly, he's much smarter than me. I mean, we're talking subject matter jurisdiction and international shoe. And oh my gosh, what's a lawful law? Oh, geez. I don't know. We'll see. Let's see here. Uncivil law. Grounds. Thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you. Appreciate everybody doing that. And we don't ask for super chats. Don't get me wrong, but we appreciate it. It highlights it here on the screen, so definitely increases your shot of getting that. Yes, Jen Lowe, hardest working mod in show business. That's right. Tag a friend. Check out CrimeTalk. That's right. Like it. And just want to thank everybody. There for a while, it seemed like we were just kind of plugging along. And I don't know. All of a sudden, we have just shot up. So to all of our old subscribers, thank you. For all of our new subscribers, thank you very much. Really do appreciate that. Our numbers have been going through the roof lately. And not only on new subscribers, but also as it relates to just our views. It really popped up lately, which, like I said, we appreciate that. Now, if only we could get YouTube to monetize us from the beginning. I think we have a video out from middle of last week that's still under review. I don't think there's anything egregious in there. We don't get too graphic in any of these conversations that we have. But since I'm convinced no one actually works at Google, it's just a big computer somewhere. It doesn't really know what to do. And a word will trigger it. And all the words that we talk about in true crime trigger it. And so YouTube will demonetize us and say, yeah, sorry, Scott, we know you put time and effort and money into this and what have you, but we're not gonna pay you anything. So it's a little frustrating. So when we talk about those sponsors that support us, that's because we don't make any money on the actual views. You hear about all these people that make the Mr. Beasts of the world that make millions and millions of dollars a day on YouTube. But, I guess if we're giving away cars and planes and just showing nothing but cute little fuzzy cat pictures, then that would probably help. But that doesn't, not what we want to sit and talk about here. So we'll just have to deal with it. It's not a big deal at the end of the day. Let's see. I've got another question. Scott, please remind. I thought I did. Clumsy clairvoyance. I thought I did. I think I did. I'm almost positive I did. Scott, please get clumsy clairvoyant. All right. Let's see if let me go back. I thought I did. Let's see here. Did it not get highlighted? The super chat. Frank, if you can find the clumsy clairvoyance super chat, can you put that up? Let's see here. Okay. Is it Gene? David Wright Klein is flaky. I heard he said there was a weapon and a phone in the Wabash River, but rumors have it that the divers never found anything, if that's true. Yeah, I don't know. I know they did a big search, but I don't think that anything turned up, but not that they would tell me. So unfortunately, I know about, I don't know if anything is in fact turned up. But Mr. Klein, I think he'll be a witness. We'll have to wait and see as well. Let's see here. Just trying to look here. Columbus and clairvoyance. Do you think the probable cause will be released? Yes, I do. I think this judge is going to keep it fair for everybody involved. Things done in secret, people don't have trust in. Whether I don't care how serious or not serious people consider a case, things need to be done in public, things done behind closed doors, smoke-filled rooms, in secrecy. It just doesn't. It doesn't instill trust and confidence in everybody as to what went on. And I think a couple examples that I can cite to that. First was, what's the police officer that was on George Floyd's neck? I mean, we've only mentioned his name a bazillion times. Anyway, his trial aired on TV from start to finish, from jury selection to sentencing. People are like, oh, the city's going to burn. The city didn't burn. Why? Because people could see it. But if you have a bunch of agitators on either side saying, this is what went on, they're manipulating, they're lying, people don't know. And they're like, I believe it. Just tell the truth. People are smart. They get it. And if you can let them see the facts, they will usually figure it out for themselves. You don't have to pull the wool over their eyes and hope that they follow you like blind sheep. Tell them the truth. They're smart. That's why we have juries, right? That's why the founding fathers have juries. One, they didn't have any trust in the government. Let's be fair. They didn't trust the government. The Bill of Rights is nothing but a document saying, do not trust those in power. They will abuse it. And these are limitations on government. And sure enough, what do they always try to do? Oh, that's not unreasonable. An unreasonable search would be if we just kicked in your door. But, we didn't kick. We came in under surreptitious conversation, and therefore it's okay. And yeah, maybe we looked around, but it was in plain view. They're always stretching the powers. No one in government ever gets up and says, you know what? I think we have taken too much power from the people and we should give it back to them. It never happens. Why do you think the founding fathers of this country wouldn't ratify the Constitution unless the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, were ratified with that? Because they didn't trust the government, and everything in there, those first 10 amendments, is everything that they knew that a dictator thug would take away from you if he got the power. And remember, this was a radical concept, a jury trial. I mean, they'd had a little bit of it in England, but this was a radical concept. People voting a constitutional republic, a Republican form of government. We set representatives to there. Everything else prior to that was a dictator. It was a monarchy. Who was the biggest thug in town that could control power by power and force? And these guys said, we're going to try something different. It may fail miserably, but we're doing okay. But be careful. Be careful. I mean, and yes, I'm cynical. Okay, I am very cynical. But it's because of what I've done. Right? I've said it before. For 27 years, primarily criminal defense work. Okay. When the government tells me, oh, we got your guy, it's overwhelming, you better plead guilty now. Oh, okay, fine. I'll take a look myself before I, do something. Trust us. It's all good. You don't need to get that paperwork. Yeah, I really want that paperwork. I get the paperwork. Turns out it wasn't done. It wasn't done at all correctly. And who allows that stuff to take place? Well, and I love police. I love good police. We need good police out there. We want good police out there. Bottom line is, so yeah, it's we need good police. We need good prosecutors that hold bad cops accountable. We need good judges that hold bad cops accountable. Frankly, even bad attorneys accountable, whether it's prosecution or defense. The truth is going to come out. Dean Hopkins, I think it's Dean. Yeah, he's not a pharmacist. He was a pharmacist tech. And CVS has pharmacists and pharmacy techs. But he is a pharmacy tech, not a pharmacist. I think somebody pointed out, like, you misspoke, even though I know I said it the day before that he was a pharmacist tech, and I must have whether got edited out or I misspoke. You're right. He's a pharmacist tech. You're right. I agree. He's a pharmacy technician. Let's see here. Uh-oh, Pamela, you lost your membership status? No, I assure you that wasn't anything that we did. I do not know. All right. Well, it looks like it is time to go. I want to thank you all for joining us this evening on our live show, whether it was Facebook or YouTube. I think primarily YouTube. And also we have a, who knew this? We have a Roku channel. So if you have a Roku TV, you should download our little application. And we'll see. Maybe it'll be the new one that people will advertise and you can't get demonetized on. Because frankly, it's getting a little old. Not that I'm complaining, but it'd be nice if I could, cover the cost, so to speak. We'll see. Anyway, we do it for the fun. We do it for you all. So thank you. Scott, another big case was sealed. Coincidence? No, because the prosecution's asking for it. Prosecution usually gets what they want. When a case is sealed, there's only two people that know what's in that affidavit. The guy that wrote the affidavit, probably the detective, the guy that reviewed it, I guess three, at the DA's office, and the judge. The defense can't even get a copy of it. The defense needs to be able to prepare. And at that point, when it's unsealed, it becomes part of the court records. And it should be public information. Bottom line. So no, it's not a coincidence. Kind of goes back to the whole government thing. Trust us. Don't worry about it. Trust us. No, don't. If they say it's going to be a mild snowstorm, don't worry about it. Worry about it. If they tell you it's going to be the biggest thing ever, how many times has it turned out to be a complete dud? So you just got to, take it from a word. I'm telling you, trust but verify. And always err on the side of individual rights. What did Ayn Rand say? The greatest minority is the individual rights. Individual rights. It's what's protected under the Constitution. Not this, if we all do it for better. It's okay. We can sacrifice information on this case because it's really important. We would have a fair trial. And guess what? Then it turns into the next case. And then it becomes the norm. And then next thing, nobody ever does anything about it other than some trial attorney down there on the front line saying, Judge, this isn't right. You need to unseal it. My client is entitled to let the world know what evidence or lack of evidence they have against him and keep it at that. Okay? That's what it is. He has just as much right to clear his own name as well. Scott, can you file a motion to unseal? No, I'm sorry. I am not licensed in Indiana. And the defense attorney should be doing it so they can get a copy of it. The prosecution usually is the one that files it. Once, an indictment or an arrest warrant remains sealed until the person's arrested and shows up in court, that's prosecution usually does it. We'll just have to wait and see. All right. I want to thank you all for joining us. Hopefully you are a Patreon member, all of our Crime Talk aficionado Patreon members. We're going to take a quick break. See you over there in just a couple of minutes. I want to thank everybody for watching. Remember, subscribe if you haven't, like if you do, hit that little bell. And remember, you can listen to us anytime on your favorite podcasting app. Have a wonderful night. We appreciate you taking the time to be with us. I apologize if we did not get your question answered. I guess you just have to become a Patreon and guarantee that, because there won't be 800 people watching at every given time with comments coming in. So we can take your questions one at a time. All right. Have a wonderful night. We'll see our Patreon people in just a few minutes. Everybody else, have a great time. We'll see you next time on Crime Talk.